All right, guys. So I want to welcome everybody back, of course, to the Knows Sense and Sensibility in the Working Dog World. Now, our last couple of guests have been very much Search Dog Foundation related, of course. Last week, we had Mike Stornetta and Rocket that joined us from Northern California. They're a veteran search team. And this week, we have our training team joining us from the National Training Center. So we're trying to give you a little bit of a variety, and we're not always going to be focused on our group, but especially thanks to some technological learning things we need to do. It's been great to do it a little bit in-house. But I will say that this is the first time that I've gotten to really talk to Mandy here, who's our canine training manager, in quite a while. I haven't personally been on campus in a couple of months. And so you all are getting to kind of see things the way that even most of our office staff is having to see it, which is virtually. But we're really, really excited to launch this series so that you can kind of take a sneak peek behind the scenes, see how we train the dogs, talk a little bit about it, share some of that knowledge. And then really exciting today, it's not just us talking, because that's not why you're here. You want to see the dogs. We're going to actually have one of our canines on campus searching on the rubble pile. You can see him there, and I'll introduce him in just a moment. But for those of you who are new to the Search Dog Foundation, a little bit about us. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so we are not for profit, non-governmental agency that relies solely on individual and foundation gifts and donations. And so all of you that have joined us, everybody who has contributed in any way, you really are the ones that are making this happen. And that's partly why it's so exciting to be able to share this with you. Our mission is to strengthen disaster response in America. And so we do that by recruiting and rescuing shelter dogs mostly, and training them to become search dogs to find survivors in the wreck disasters. So while that's a pretty heavy topic, especially right now with everything that's going on, it's also a very important one, because we know, unfortunately, disasters don't stop just because of what may be going on in the rest of the world. And we truly believe as a staff and as what we call the SDF family that we can't stop either. And so that's why we're giving you a glimpse into how the training team is continuing to do the incredible work that they do and the very important work that they do in preparing for the next disaster and getting the next generation of search dogs ready to go. So as you can see, Mandy and Storm are here waiting with us. Mandy Tisdale is our canine training manager. Hi, Mandy. And Storm there is
Hi.
actually in training, but he's just about ready to go, right? He's about ready to graduate.
He is, yep.
So he is what we call a senior. We tier our classes as freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. And so he's going to put on probably a pretty good show for us, I would imagine, a little bit later when we do that rubble search. So before we get to that, though, because I will tell you, search dogs get extremely excited when it's time to go. And luckily, he can't hear me saying the word search. I want to talk to Mandy just a little tiny bit about what it is you guys do exactly, and some of the more challenging pieces of what we do that are caused by a really great aspect of our program, which is they're coming from shelters. Oftentimes the majority of our dogs are rescued dogs. Do you guys notice a lot of behavioral quirks or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we do notice a lot of certain behavioral characteristics in these dogs. They tend to be very rowdy, bold, energetic, outgoing, and a lot of them, they haven't had any training put on them before they come to us. So we have our work cut out, definitely. But we look for dogs like this. It's exactly the kind of dog we're looking for. So it's fun.
And what are some of those traits that you're looking for that are going to kind of tell you that this dog might be a good candidate?
So one, the dog has to be environmentally sound, meaning that they're able to traverse unstable surfaces without any concern of that. If you can see the rubble pile behind me, the dogs have to move effortlessly across the pile, and they can't really care about unstable surfaces. Another thing we look for is they need to be socially sound, with good temperament with people and other dogs. We look for an extreme toy drive. So this isn't just a dog that likes to retrieve in the backyard. This is a dog that needs its toy. We utilize that toy as a reward system. So we need a dog that is able to possess and really have a visceral response to a toy. heavy possession of that toy, and an incredible amount of drive to hunt and search for their toy when it's hidden. We utilize that in their training.
And those dogs are not easy to find, I would imagine. I mean, we jokingly call them diamonds in the rough, RUFF, but they're not easy. They're not in every single shelter necessarily. And I mean, you guys see a lot of dogs that come through, videos of dogs that they want to play with the toy, but they just don't have that over the top drive that we're really looking for. They can't quit, right?
Correct. Yeah, that is correct. And an important piece of that is there may be a dog that enjoys the toy in a familiar environment, but once they're out of a familiar environment and there's distractions around, as you can see in this beautiful property here, we have lots of distractions. We have lots of critters, lots of bunnies, all sorts of squirrels. The dogs really have to stay focused on their job. And so a dog that enjoys to play and have fun with their toy in an environment, you take them out to maybe a park or something like that, and they may lose interest in a toy. That would be something that we do see some of that happen in video screening. So.
Well, and that makes sense. I think not every dog is cut out to be a search dog. And thankfully, we have our lifetime care program where even if a dog comes into training and looks great, feels great, seems to want to be a search dog, even if it doesn't work out, you're able to find a career change placement potentially, or even a home for that dog despite its drive, right? You're still able to kind of channel that into something useful.
Exactly. Yeah. And the dogs that we are looking for, that we bring out, maybe they don't feel super comfortable on the rubble, but they have all the other characteristics we're looking for. That's really a dog that probably wouldn't do well in a pet home. I don't want to generalize that, but that's kind of what we see. And we would look for a career change for that type of dog. This is a dog that needs to work, not just that they like to work, but they actually need to work. So a career change is a really good option for those types of dogs. But we also do get we get dogs that are suitable for pet homes as well. So we've got two avenues to place them.
Great. And they never go back to the shelter. I have to make that clear to everybody. Never, ever. They always find their place. So thank you guys for doing that, because I know that's a lot of extra work on top of trying to train a search dog. Now you have to find the right placement for them. But what is training a search dog like? Can you kind of walk us through, what that 9 to 12 month process kind of looks like from the moment a dog comes through our gates to handing that leash over to a brand new first responder handler?
Sure. I could actually spend hours talking about this process, so I will try to keep it as simple as possible with giving the information. So the first thing we need to understand here is that the dogs need to have a final trained response, and the final trained response for us in urban search and rescue is a bark alert. So we need the dogs to, when they find human odor, we need them to pinpoint the strongest source of that odor and elicit a bark, and they need to be barking for a long time, so that we know potentially where that victim is. So we're looking for a bark alert. Some detection they perform like a sit or a passive alert. We have an active alert in the sense the dogs have to bark. So knowing that, the very first thing that we do is we teach these dogs it's okay to bark, and not only is it okay to bark, you can bark all you want and we are going to give you your toy. So we pair that. We basically say, hey, we know you love your toy, and we elicit a bark, and when you bark you get your toy. And most dogs, once they realize that that's the game, the barks come. A lot of times in homes we spend a lot of time teaching our dogs to be quiet and not bark and all that. So when they come here and they realize that door is now open, the barks come, and it's a lot of fun for them. So first things first, we teach them to bark, and then we present them with their toy. Once we have that, we teach them, now you know what to do for your toy. We'll put somebody in a confined space, usually a barrel with a lid closed, and we teach the dogs that, okay, you bark for your toy is going to come out of that barrel. And so we'll have somebody in there, which is our person who's hiding, our decoy, if you will. And when the dog goes in and barks the appropriate way that we want them to, the toy is presented. So by capturing that in real time, they learn what their criteria is. And once they understand their criteria, I look for, or when my person is hidden, I bark and I get my toy. We then activate the natural desire to hunt. So we'll put multiple barrels out that look the same, because we don't want the dogs using their eyes. We want them using their nose. We want them to kind of turn that piece off. We want them using their nose to find odor. So once they understand to bark for their toy at a hidden person, we then send them just to hunt basically for that hidden person and elicit a bark. So they understand what the final trained response is. Now we're just tapping into that natural desire to hunt. When they find their person, they elicit the bark because they've already learned that piece of it, and then their toy is presented. And then from there, we move them to hunting for their person in larger areas. And then once we have a really solid, they have a really solid imprint on how to hunt and search for a hidden person, then we bring them up on the rubble, which you guys can see here behind me. We add this level of difficulty once they have a real understanding of what their job is. And so once they're on the rubble, they're having fun running around here looking for the people. And another piece of that, another piece of their training, is actually a huge piece of their training, but is they have to learn certain disciplines for part of their, well, they're mostly for safety, they're in real life for safety, but they're part of the foundation skill assessment. So part of that is mission control. We have to be able to show off-leash control at a distance of our dogs to move in different directions. We also have to show that they can perform agility obstacles with ease and comfort. So that's part of their test. So we do agility here. We do formal obedience with the dogs. They have to have off-leash recalls and off-leash obedience. So there's a variety of things that we train here at the Institute.
That's amazing. And like I said, that's a 9 to 12 month process. So thank you for condensing that to a couple minutes for us. And I have to say, I have one favorite part, which I'll share in a moment, of my favorite piece of the training when you see the dog come in. But what is the kind of the most challenging part oftentimes with, you've been with us for many years now and you've trained many dogs. What's kind of the most challenging piece of training a dog that's never done this?
I really believe, like, in my experience, I really feel that the most challenging piece of it is actually probably one of the most rewarding pieces of it as well. So part of the challenge we have here is we talked a lot about dogs that have come in from shelters. A lot of them, like I said, are really bold and frankly a little bit unruly. You look at the dogs kind of like that, and then we channel that energy, we channel that desire to be active and move and bold, and channel that into this work. And that can be a challenge up front because a lot of the dogs come in, they've had really no formal training. They don't really know how to learn. And so that is our challenge to teach them to work with us, collaborate with us, and really effectively communicate with them so they know they understand how to learn. And really when that piece clicks, the dog, and we treat each dog as an individual. So that may happen quickly for one dog and maybe a little bit later for another dog. But when that little magic happens and we see it happen, it's super rewarding because then we have that relationship with the dog and we're able to work them through more of their training as they succeed. So it's that piece is challenging, but it's like quite literally the most rewarding.
I'm glad to hear you say that because that is my favorite piece as well. I think right at the beginning when I've watched many times as the training team, you guys are trying to get a bark out of a dog and teach a dog that it's okay to bark again. A lot of these dogs, we can assume, obviously they can't tell us, but we can assume that they've been told either don't bark or they, unfortunately have been hit or disciplined in some other inappropriate way to keep them from barking, because that's what we tend to do with dogs that are at home. And then though, through your skills, we see this dog realize, and they really have a light bulb moment. You can see the moment that they get it and they start to realize that they can get that toy by barking and that you want me to bark. And then on top of that, you start tugging with them and give them that reward and give them that praise and that affection. Yep. And I see all of that just kind of negative stuff that they brought with them kind of start to melt away. And that, I have to say, is my absolutely favorite part. And I know that's probably the hardest part for the training team, is to kind of get that out of them and show them and prove to them that we're worthy, because humans haven't really given them a whole lot to trust. But that is my favorite part of the entire process. And I love watching you all work with the dogs because it's pretty amazing. It's definitely an art form, as much science and formula as there is to it. It takes very special people to train very special dogs. So we have a lot of different video resources for everybody watching on our website. If you're interested in kind of seeing, different steps of the process, you can find a lot of clips on YouTube or on our website, and you can kind of see what we're talking about a little bit more. But as I keep mentioning, we will show you also with a Rebel search here in just a couple minutes. One thing that we get asked quite a bit specific to training and trainers is, how did you get your start, Mandy, in being an animal trainer and specifically a search dog trainer? It's not exactly a normal job necessarily.
Yeah. Well, I think I probably have a similar story to a lot of trainers out there, in the sense that, I grew up with animals, grew up with dogs, and dogs were always kind of a focus in my life. But it really wasn't until I adopted a dog that had some serious behavior problems that I dove into the rabbit hole of dog training. So when I adopted her, I was committed to her. She was on the youth list at a shelter, and I adopted her the day before she was to be put down. And she was incredibly reactive. So basically working with other trainers who became very dear to me, and they mentored me early on. I found my love for dog training and the process of helping people with their dogs. So that really resonated with me. And so I call it rabbit hole, because once that happened, I never looked back. So I would volunteer at shelters, training people's dogs. I had a dog training business, and I eventually, throughout the years, started working with really high drive dogs and trying to keep them in people's homes. So I would get multiple calls day after day, of dogs that were like this. They were unruly. They didn't have any manners. They didn't know how to behave. They had no outlet for their energy. And so I segued into kind of the working dog world that way, because I was trying to work with these dogs and give them an outlet in order to keep them in their home. And so that's where my love for high drive dogs really formed. So after a number of years of that, I was lucky enough to get my position here at SDF, and it's literally a dream job. It's so fun. I love it.
And we love having you. I love how you describe it, though, as channeling that drive and kind of guiding that dog, not changing its personality, not even really changing the behavior necessarily. You're channeling what they already have instinctively, within them, and helping them find that. I love the way you describe that. And it's so important, because I think a lot of folks think of working dogs as needing to kind of be tamed or, broken, for lack of a better word, and things like that. But that is not at all what you all are doing with these really high drive dogs. They just need a job and need to know how to do it. And like we talked about a little bit before, that's when the transformation happened. And I do also want to pick up on, you said, your girl, who's beautiful, and turned out wonderfully and lived a great life with you, was on the euthanasia list initially because of those exact behaviors, which at the time you didn't work for Search Dog Foundation, but those same traits oftentimes that these dogs in the shelters have that make them completely unsuitable for a home and a regular owner, we'll say. And it often lands them on the unadoptable or the euthanasia list. And so it's a real testament to you all as the training team at SDF, and also trainers and handlers across the country who are finding these dogs and saying, no, there's no reason that we need to let them be euthanized or, forever placed on an unadoptable list in a shelter. There are places for them. There are outlets. So I just want to make sure we talk about that a little bit too, because it's so important that we're not changing them. We're just helping them find their path, their purpose in life. It's incredible. So, and I also want to talk a little bit about your current boy, who was a former shelter dog and didn't quite want to be a disaster search dog in terms of life find goes, but Mandy actually has one of our lifetime care dogs named Paul, who he had a little bit of issue with, like I said, with the life find part of it. But you were able to help him once again find his purpose, even if it wasn't in what Search Dog Foundation does. Search Dog Foundation, by the way, folks, is really focused right now just on life find search dogs, so looking for survivors after disasters. But they work very closely with the human remains detection teams as well to be sure that absolutely no one is left behind. And so, Paul, why don't you tell us a little bit about where his career has taken him, and now you, and what you all are up to?
Yeah, so Paul was in our program here at Lifeline. He displayed all of the characteristics that we look for in a search dog. Very comfortable on the rubble, high toy possession, toy drive, very bold, very energetic, so pushy. And throughout his training, we realized that while he would hunt and hunt and hunt and find his Lifeline people, he didn't really truly enjoy the surprise of a tug or a toy coming out of somebody, excuse me, coming out of the hide of somebody that's hiding from him. So it kind of surprised him, and so we started to see that he would let us know where victims were, and but he wouldn't go. His final trained response was starting to diminish because that wasn't his thing. He didn't enjoy that surprise factor. So unfortunately, at the time, we had to put him into the lifetime care program. But working with Paul and training with him, he just really, he's that dog that is, he's not really a pet dog. He needs a job. He needs to do. And because he was so great at all of his other training elements, including how comfortable he is on rubble, which is something that stands out for our type of search work. I decided to see if he would take to a different type of detection, which is USAR, so urban search and rescue, but instead of blind, doing human detection. So I imprinted him on human remains, and he took to it right away. It was almost like all of his training that he had here, he understood he elicited a full-on bark alert, and so from that point I realized, okay, Paul, this is the job that you need, and let's just take it from there. Let's figure this out and train, work hard. And I'm happy to say that we're a certified canine human remain detection team, and we're part of California Regional Task Force 7. So yeah,
which is awesome. I mean, that is, to me, being a dog person, there is no better happy ending as far as I'm concerned. And you mentioned also the bark alert, and so Paul has a bark alert now for human remains detection, but he kind of carried over a little bit from his Lifeline training that we do at the National Training Center and at Search Dog Foundation. And so every dog we have has this bark alert. And it's important, as we're about to see in just a second, because on the rubble pile, we can see you sitting on the rubble, and that pile is probably, is that about 10,000 square feet or so, maybe a little bit more. And it's pretty wide. It has some voids or some kind of crevices, which can be difficult for dogs to go over. But because we're so far away now, we're kind of cheating and using an earpiece so we can hear you very clearly on the video. But if you and I were standing apart on that rubble pile, it would be very difficult to hear you all the way across, or even hear a dog if they were just whimpering or something like that. And so that bark alert, though, tell us a little bit about why that's so important and what that means for the rescuers that are at a real disaster.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So the reason the bark alert is so important is because when in a real life setting, when you're sending a dog into, let's say, a collapsed building or some place that's dangerous that you actually physically can't go, like you're sending your dog in there. If you can't see your dog, how are you going to know if they have found someone? So plain and simple, that bark alert lets the handler and the team know that they have found something. So that's why that is so important. If we didn't have that bark alert, we wouldn't know, and we would potentially miss people that were survivors. So bark alert is super important.
Yeah, well, I say Storm has been pretty patient with us, so thank you, buddy. I know you can't probably hear me, but why don't we let him show us a beautiful bark alert, and let's do a search and see what we can find. Now, Mandy's going to go off camera a little bit, so we're going to watch her and Storm go ahead and go and get ready, so we can see a little bit of a longer search. I know a lot of people start thinking, well, it wouldn't take that long, right? Or it'll take them quite a while. We'll have a lot of time. But looking at the rubble pile that we see on the video right now, even just from this angle, it would take humans weeks, if not months, to turn over every single slab of concrete. and try and find a human that is buried beneath the surface. We don't have that kind of time after a disaster. And so it's really important that these dogs are able to quickly cover the pile, not by turning over every piece of rubble, but by sniffing and using their noses to pinpoint the strongest scent source. And so our scent source here, Alex, you can see him getting in the tube right now. He's going to jump in there and he's going to pull the lid up. So the lids that we use, Mandy mentioned a little bit earlier that the dogs start out with these. You can't really see it in the video too well, but there are oftentimes a little hole, a mouse hole, we call it. So if you think back to Cinderella, the Disney movie, the typical, kind of half oval shape of a mouse hole allows the scent to escape in a very strong and yet very pinpointed way, which allows us to really reinforce what these dogs need to do and where they need to alert. So Mandy's on the far side of the rubble right now, and we have Alex all set in his hole and ready to go. So she's going to go ahead and release him from over there. And unfortunately, we won't be able to capture that part of it, but we should be able to see him come up and over the rubble pretty quickly. I don't know which way the wind is going at the moment. I don't also know how hot it is. I'm assuming it's pretty warm up there right now. So he should have a pretty good time in getting the scent and kind of figuring out where that victim may be. All of those things I just mentioned factor into a search. They can actually vary a search a lot depending on where you are and what kind of conditions you have. So we're going to keep watching and kind of see how he does it. Oftentimes you'll notice his body language will change when he picks up the scent. So we'll see if we can actually catch that on the video. And I'll point that out to all of you. But you're about to see just how quickly he is able to cover that. So let's hear if we can hear Mandy getting ready to release him over there.
Released him already.
He's already on. Okay. So good, we can still hear you. So Storm is on the pile. Oh, we can see him there kind of along the top side. And so he's going to work that whole pile, and unless the wind is blowing really in his favor, it might take him a couple minutes, but maybe not. He covers it pretty quick. And I just want to point out how much fun he's having. That tail is wagging. He's light on his feet. He's having a good time. And some of that is directly related to the care and the training that these dogs have, not just in their search dog training, but in their everyday workouts. We actually have a canine gym dedicated specifically to them for core strengthening, endurance building, things like that. They are true athletes. So when they get up on the rubble pile like this, they're really getting to kind of stretch their legs and their limits a little bit and use what they've been given in terms of training to put it to the test and really see in real time what they can do. And every time I've watched, he's performed flawlessly. So we're going to keep watching. He's going to be checking the pile. And Mandy, I don't know if you can still hear us from over there, but you can maybe tell us a little bit about what he's doing on that side.
So he's working the pile right now. The wind is really whipping. It's swirling. So he hasn't caught odor yet. So he's going to have to work the whole pile.
Great. Well, it's good training. You know, our trainers work so hard to make sure that they set things up properly. The search problems are appropriate for the level of the dog, but we can't control everything. Just like at a real disaster on a real deployment, there's always that element of uncertainty. And so, as we said before, Storm is ready to graduate at this point and is a senior. And so it's probably the more challenging, the better for him, right?
Yes. Yeah. We're looking for ways to challenge him for sure.
Good. And when Mandy said that the wind is kind of whipping, that makes it really kind of choppy and difficult when you think of the scent being blown around in different ways and not continuous. That can be more challenging for a dog because they're not getting that constant intake of the scent to be able to kind of follow it. Now they aren't trailing. It's not like a trailing dog where they're, following a track or anything like that. They're having to pick up the scent in the air, which is very, very different. And that's why that wind and the temperature and the weather and things like that can really factor into a search. So like Mandy said, he's searching the whole pile right now. He's going to be a tired, happy, satisfied pup by the end of the day. Which part is he in, Mandy? Can you still see him and hear us?
Yeah, he's back. If you can see me, he's back over here.
Okay.
He's behind
and is
me
he kind
right
of Is he searching kind of the perimeter right now, or is he actually on the pile?
He's on the pile, but he's on the edge. He's searching the edge of the pile right now.
Great. And that's something that you guys kind of teach them to do as they become more advanced in their training. You have to search both around the edge of the pile as well as all across the top. And really that's kind of your job, right? Is to see where the wind's going and get him in place to catch the scent.
Yep, exactly. And a lot of times the perimeter can be hard for the dogs because they want to blow right past it. They just want to get into the middle of the pile. So they're trained to search every area of the space.
And I would imagine it's hard to get them to slow down sometimes enough to really thoroughly do the job. Yeah. Some dogs probably want to go pretty quick and just run, but he's doing a nice job. It looks like from the bits we're able to see him, and we'll keep watching and see how he does. Now, we do have someone else on the pile that is not a victim. I just want to point out that is Jen. She's one of our canine care staff. And she's acting as a spotter. We always have a second person up there in addition to the handler to be sure they're watching for any hazards and to be able to see where the dog is and kind of keep track. The handler or the trainer in this case, the number one job is to be that dog's advocate in every way, meaning safety, meaning, health, and also, as we said before, positioning the dog for success as best we can. And I will venture to say we also ask that our handlers and trainers kind of stay out of the way a little bit and trust their dog, because this is what they're trained to do. This is what Storm is doing, is all off leash and all independent. He may get some guidance, but I hope everybody can hear that. The video kind of, so we missed him coming in a little bit, but that bark alert is what we were talking about.
Good boy.
So now he's getting to tug on his toy. So he barked right there at the hole, and Alex pushes the toy out through that hole so he gets that reward.
Wow, Storm was amazing. You had to work hard for that, buddy. Good work, kiddo. Good work, kiddo. Oh, you getting out of there, Storm.
Oh, nice, look at that tail.
Buddy. Nice job, buddy. Good work, Stormy.
Boy. Now, all of our friends on Instagram and everywhere are cheering on for him as well. So he gets to tug with Mandy a little bit also. It's a real party.
Yay, Storm, you did it. It was amazing.
Oh, good boy.
It's behind
He really earned that one. He had to work for that. So we're glad he got a good reward. And thank you, Alex. I don't know if he can hear us, but thank you, Alex, for being a great victim in there. He did a great job.
Yay,
so
Storm!
You can see Storm is tugging right there. It's a little hard to see probably, but it's not just the toy and getting to sit with the toy. It's that activity and that interaction of tugging and feeling like such a good dog and tapping into that instinct of wanting to tug. Now, you see that Mandy handed the toy back to Alex. Alex is the important one here. Sorry, Mandy, we all love you, but the victim is the important one because the victim is the one that Storm was looking for, and he knows has his toy and is the one who is going to give him that reward. And that is why it's so important that our victims are well trained, because in a real life deployment, they won't have a toy in their pocket, typically speaking, at least after a disaster. But we want the dogs to think that we want them to feel as though this hide and seek game will continue no matter what the situation. They don't know it's life and death when it's a real disaster. All they know is they get to go play their favorite game. So thank you, Alex, for being there as well. But Mandy, do you have anything to add as far as what we saw with Storm? I mean, he worked a long time to get that reward. He did a great job.
Yeah, what you guys, I would assume you probably couldn't see, is on the back end of that pile, there's a vast, the rubble pile is vast back there. And so he was working that very systematically. He knows how to use wind, and the wind was not in his favor. So he was working his way to find wind to help him in his search. But I'm really proud of him. He covered the pile really, really well. And it was he had to work hard for it. It's good. Yeah.
Good. Well, it looks like he's really enjoying that reward, as he should.
Yeah.
So for everybody at home, we would love for you to go ahead and use the comment box and ask any questions you have. We have a few more minutes that we can kind of answer a few things here and there. I know that we have everyone from just fans of the search dogs to handlers that will be joining us in our next handler course. Feel free to ask anything and everything, and I'll kind of feed that to Mandy. One of the questions that we had come in was, what is your favorite training memory? I mean, you've been with us for several years. What's one of your favorite training memories that you have, whether it's goofy or not? What's the best one?
Oh my, there are there are so many. I mean, each one of these dogs, they're such characters. They all have their own individual personalities. I mean, honestly, picking one would be kind of difficult. I really like. I think every day we have, we're serious about our work and all that. Of course, it's serious business. However, we're working with animals here, and they keep us laughing on a daily basis. So I think they keep us humble for sure. They train us as much as we train them. So gosh, and thinking about one kind of one memory, I guess I don't know. There was a dog, or there is a dog. Her name's Kendry. So I don't know if his handler or her handler is watching this today, but Kendry is high drive, crazy, go 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 go, just a rocket of a dog. And I remember when I was getting to know her, she was wild and crazy, just wild, 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 wild. And I realized it happenstance after a search one day, she was coming off the pile, and it was one of those search moments where it was like super challenging for her, and she rose to the occasion, and I was so proud of her. I came off the pile with her, and I was just like looking at her in awe. I'm like, this little girl is amazing. And I kind of knelt down to just kind of touch her chest and like let her know what a great job she did. And again, this is a wild, bounce off the wall kind of dog. And as soon as I did that, she turned into the sweetest little thing in the world. It was a side of this dog I have never seen before. And it's funny that how they sometimes they have off, they can have that off switch when they need to, and they have the actual perfect job for them. And so she's still a wild and crazy girl, but inside that is a real sweetheart. So
and I know she stole your heart.
She did.
Yeah. And so we have another question. Speaking of stealing hearts, I have a feeling this is from a veteran handler I see that is asking about Storm and how old he is, and is he going out in the next class?
Storm is a little over 2, and he's slated to go out in the next class.
So he's ready to go. He's actually more than ready to go. We've had to, unfortunately, as have most of the country, had to put our gatherings on hold, and that includes our handler course. And so you heard us talking a little bit about wanting to challenge him, and that is a challenge for the training team, I would imagine, is to keep a high drive dog, challenged beyond the typical training levels. And is he actually working kind of on his certification level that he would normally work on with his handler? But my understanding is you guys have been working towards that anyway, just to keep him going, right?
Yeah. They are working on. We're doing a foundational assessment with the dogs. Our trainers are as they become ready, and we're checking that box off so that we know that they are ripe and ready to go when they are paired with their handlers. Obviously that's a process too, because we then have to generalize those behaviors to somebody else. But right. the senior class is definitely, we are challenging them with many difficult search problems, and they're just rising to the occasion. It's fun.
Oh, awesome. Well, and that's a lot of work to go above and beyond. And, with these dogs, especially, we talked about the traits, the super over the top high drive, and really the toy obsession. They have to possess that toy, the abundant energy that never ends. And also then paired with the laser-like focus they have to have for that toy. What would you say to somebody who thinks they may have that in their dog at home that they just maybe can't handle, or they just aren't able to give enough time or activity to? What's your recommendation for somebody who may have a search dog candidate in their home?
Well, if somebody out there thinks that they have the kind of dog we're looking for, we're always looking. So I would recommend that they contact our recruitment team, and we get the evaluation process started.
Yeah, and I will say that, we have a website that you can go to, our main website, but under Canine Recruitment, all of that info is there. So if someone thinks that they have a dog like that, go ahead and click on that page and read through it. And we do have to be sure that these dogs have what it takes, you know, both behaviorally as well as physically, and, you know, health wise, we want to be sure that they're sound enough to do this work. But please do reach out if you feel like you may have a candidate that fits the profile and you think can do what Storm just did. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. So we have one more question before we go, and I have to laugh because I think I already know the answer. But for both you and Alex, and maybe you can ask him and relay it if we aren't able to hear him. But the question is, dogs or humans? Question mark.
So I'm relaying this to Alex right now. Somebody's asking a question out there, dogs or humans? And I'm assuming that is a question on which is more difficult to train. Is that probably that question?
I have a feeling it's probably more your favorite to deal with, but either way.
Oh. Whoops. I would say what's more fun to train? You know what? I'm going to be very politically correct with this answer. No, I'm just kidding. I think that the dogs are a lot of fun to train, and they can be challenging, as we've talked about. The humans as well, they're a lot of fun to train, but they can be challenging as well, because we basically have to take what we're seeing in a dog and what we train them to do and transfer that into human language and have that process in people's brains and then write down the leash to the dog. But we do it, and I think that our training team is super effective, and we have a lot of fun with it. So both. Absolutely. We like both.
Well, and on that point, you know, what is that like to hand that leash over to a new handler after you've put, you know, blood, sweat, and tears into this dog for months and months, and now you hand the leash over to a brand new firefighter handler or first responder handler and send them home? What's that feeling like?
It's actually we get a lot, actually, and it's actually very rewarding to do that, because we know with this work that we're taking dogs and we're saving their lives and we're giving them a purpose, and in turn they're going to, you know, rescue to rescuer. That's you know, our motto. And so handing that leash over, we know that we've done our job, and we've done right by the dog and by our community and our nation, you know, so to speak. I mean, we know that we're putting out teams that are able to provide a very valuable resource during times of need. And so I think that handing that leash over is a moment of happiness. Obviously, we'll miss the dogs and we love them. We're very connected to these animals. It's not just a tool that we put out. Like these are, every single dog that we train becomes a little piece of us. And luckily we have such great people that we work with, and such great handlers that we see them and we communicate with them all the time. And so we know that they're in the best hands possible. So I think it's a really proud and wonderful moment when we hand that leash over.
Oh, well, we love everything that you guys do. I have to say, on behalf of all of our staff, that we're not able to be there. We miss you guys so much. This was so great to be able to spend some time with you over video. But thank you all for everything you're doing as well, because I know the training team has been there, you know, despite the shelter in place and everything, having to get there and train the dogs and everything safely and at a distance, and, you know, maintaining everything that needs to be maintained. And also working in conjunction, of course, with our canine care team, which, if anybody at home missed it, make sure you check out our Facebook or Instagram from yesterday. They did a full takeover on Takeover Tuesday with the canine care team on a typical day, how they care for the dogs. And they are the ones that actually do the exercise that I was talking about before, and just make sure that they're loved and they're cared for. And we've had core staff actually staying on campus this last full 2 months to just be sure that everything runs smoothly and these dogs are cared for. So thank you guys so much for all that you've put in, and all you continue to put in, and hopefully we'll get to see you guys out there again soon. But this is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's nice to hear your voice, Denise, and it's a pleasure. Thanks for putting this together. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys.